Hi guys, welcome. Today we are doing a end-of-life review on the Hoka Arahi 6 shoe. Right, I do all of my reviews on trainers retrospectively, looking backwards over the period of a shoe's life. Now, why do I do that? A lot of shoe reviewers on YouTube, they get sent samples and they buy trainers and they get immediately out, they do 2 weeks worth of running and then they do a review. Well, I do not believe that those reviews can wholly take into account the entire lifespan of a shoe, right? They cannot tell you how many miles you're going to get. You're not going to tell you what the shoe is like at midlife, where it starts to fatigue, where it starts to fail, what problems you might have, where it excels, where it's amazing, what sort of running to do in it. Those sorts of reviews are a tiny snapshot. I am giving you the review of the shoe in its entirety, what it did for me. It's a very personal review about this trainer. So the Arahi 6 trainer is in fact a stability shoe, and that's kind of why I'm pushing this to the front of my shoes and reviewing it all by itself. The stability shoe is the solution to, we're talking about overpronation. These are where the ankle rolls in the shoe. Now, if you have a neutral shoe or if you have a shoe that has a sort of a skinny waist, you will generally find that overpronators will lean inward on that type of shoe. I am an overpronator, and I learned of this when I examined some photos of myself running about 10 years ago. A little after that, I started to get ankle pains and shin splints, and these were all related to my overpronation. So that's why we are doing this shoe today, because it is specifically aimed at overpronating runners. Now, the Hoka Arahi 6 is in fact the big sister to the Clifton range, right? These shoes are very similar in appearance. They very much have the same profile. The only sort of difference in these shoes is the technologies in this trainer that adds that additional support. Just to throw a few of these out there, there is sort of an exaggerated arch for arch support inside the shoe. There is something called the J-frame that exists around here, which supports the medial side when foot striking. And in a lot of Hokas, the main reason why I actually run in Hokas is they have something called the wide-waisted geometry or flat-waisted geometry. Now here, across the waist of the shoe, across where the arch is, all of that tread touches the ground. Now in other shoes, in faster shoes, in super shoes, a lot of this is raised up, so you've got a forefoot and a back foot, and this is off the ground entirely. Or they're very skinny here, they sort of come in, they have like a very thin waist. All of this is weight saving and aerodynamics and all of that, but ultimately for people like me, for overpronators, this creates a lean. Okay, so that's why I went to this brand, because even some of the neutral shoe, this is the neutral shoe, this is the Clifton, they have this as well. This adds an inherent layer of stability even in their neutral shoes. So add a few extra technologies in the Arahi 6, such as, like I said, the J-frame, the arch, and additional reinforcements around the sort of the heel there, and you've got a very stable shoe. Right, so let's tell you my story about these shoes. Why did I buy the Arahi? I knew that I needed to deal in a new set of support shoes into my rotation. Now, if you don't know what rotation means in trainer terms, it's good practice to have 3 sets of shoes. And I like to break these up into different types of shoes so that I will have a fast set, a medium set, and a slow set, right? That's how I do it. And the slow set for me is the Arahis. And the reason why I generally lean towards doing the slower miles, the zone 2s, the zone 3s in this shoe is because with all the extra engineering that goes into a support shoe, they're generally heavier, and they're generally a little bit bigger. So they feel big on your feet. When you compare them, say, against a super shoe, for example, bearing in mind that these are both mine, you can see the size difference is immediate, okay? You can see, can you see that? You can also see how skinny they are at the waist on the super shoes compared to the flat and wide-waisted geometry of the Hokas. So I generally have like a fast set, which will be my carbon set, my racing and tempo running shoes. I'll have a medium set, like my sort of my Cliftons or something similar, and then a set of support shoes. I'll rotate through them. I'll have these for the slow miles, the super shoes for the fast miles, and the medium shoes can sort of pick up a bit of both. That way, no one pair of shoes wears on your body, wears on your feet in any one place. You wear any one pair of shoes long enough, you will start to get rubbing somewhere. By rotating through shoes, they generally touch and support your feet in very different ways, and it spreads it out and just reduces the overall sort of fatigue on you. So when I got this shoe about 2 years ago, I opened the box, very excited. Whenever you get new trainers, it's always exciting, even if it is a support shoe. I opened the box and I laced them up. That day I was due to go out on an 8-mile run. I thought to myself, what better way of testing these new shoes than on an 8-mile run? So it was an out and back, so out I went. At about 3 miles, I was starting to get a bit of a hot spot in my arches. Now, I had not anticipated before setting off that the overpronation tendencies of my feet and ankles would fight so viciously with the counteracting engineering that was trying to support me that entire way. What I had done in essence is introduced a friction point between the supporting part of the shoe and my own arch. That hot spot, if you are a runner, will know that that turns into a blister inevitably. So at about 5 miles, that started to happen. By 8 miles, I had a blister about this big in my arches. Now, I was a little bit perturbed by that, and the shoes were thrown into the back of the shoe rack almost immediately. I swore that I would not run any long miles in those shoes at that point, but by the time I started running in them again, I kept the miles low, and over time my feet got used to the arches, the shoes broken in, and they started to provide that level of support that I was after in the first place. Obviously, my first run out, running 8 miles in a brand new pair of support shoes, was completely stupid of me, and I should have known better. And I have learned from that mistake. So if you get a pair of support shoes, break them in slowly. The high arch sensation it feels more aggressive than say a neutral shoe does. So yeah, just bear that in mind. Over the next 6 months to a year, I ran many hundreds of miles. In fact, probably a good third of my miles ran in these shoes, maybe even further. These were responsible for a lot of my zone 2 miles. The fast miles were left to the sort of super shoes, but these were doing the majority of the work. At this point, I was getting very good service out of these shoes, and I very much appreciated what they were doing for me. A lot of the problems that I had prior to owning support shoes in terms of ankle pain and shin splints and knee niggles all dissipated, all because my ankles were being kept upright, my running form was being made correct, and all of my goofy running was sort of a thing of the past. Now, goofy running is what I describe when I see myself running with overpronation, right? And I still see that from time to time when I slip on a pair of neutrals or even a pair of super shoes for races. But these, it had all but sort of made those problems go away. It doesn't fix the sort of biomechanical problems of your running, or it doesn't fix the problems with your gait. Those problems are likely going to exist forever. It's just important that if you are sort of prone to those problems, that you just deal a pair of these or something similar into your rotation. So I got about 300 to 400 miles, or maybe just over, of good running miles out of these shoes. And that's sort of where I wanted to leave it. That's where I was noticing that the tread was starting to get a bit thin on the bottom, and I started to look for its replacement. That's where you would think the story ends for these shoes, right? But no. What I noticed was starting to happen, that these shoes were starting to become my walk-around shoes. It's just as important to have supportive walking shoes as it is running shoes. And without realizing it, I was picking these ones off the rack almost exclusively for everyday use. Gardening, walking the dog, taking the kids to school, just everyday use. And for a year, maybe even over a year, that's what they did. given me many more miles than they probably even did running. So we're talking maybe 600, 700 miles in total now. And in one last hurrah, these were used to do landscaping, jet washing the patio, painting the decking, all of those sort of dirty, grubby jobs you don't like to do in your good shoes. And they are very much end of life now. They've got sort of holes in the toes, the J-frames coming off here. I've worn holes in the sort of heel counters. I have truly worn these shoes out. I would definitely recommend these to someone who is looking to sort of buy a pair of support shoes. Obviously, this comes with a caveat, and this is probably true of all support shoes, that you should wear them in carefully. Start off low miles and ramp it up over time. Allow your feet time to sort of get used to the shoe and time for the shoe to break into your feet. I think it's more important to do that with stability shoes than it is normal road running shoes, normal neutral shoes and such. These are the Arahi 6s. There is now a successor to this shoe, the number 7. I would be keen to see what they've improved from this shoe. Obviously, this is what's known as an iterative design. So with every year or every other year, a new version of this shoe comes out with slight tweaks and modifications to the previous year. But I'm not in the market for a shoe right now to replace these, because I made the decision that I would like to give the Cliftons a go, which is a very similar shoe to the Arahis. The things that it lacks are the sort of the J-frame under here and the more aggressive arch. It still maintains a lot of the sort of inherent stability features that you get in a lot of the Hoka shoes. So I'm going to give these a go. Assuming that none of my niggles creep back in, I will continue along with this sort of shoe. I think the last thing I need to say is thank you very much, shoes. You have provided me with a great level of service, and I will now send you to Shoe Valhalla. Okay, so that was the review of the Arahi 6. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it helps some of you out with regards to deciding what shoe, what brand, etc. to buy. If you have sort of really bad overpronation problems or supplanation problems, then it's probably best you go and get your gait looked at, bearing in mind that those types of shops that have the treadmills in and the gait analysis, they're likely going to want to sell you a particular brand. Always shop around, always look for the best price. Lots of the websites online do have discount codes, so it's always important to sort of keep an eye out for those too. Thank you very much for watching. Please give my channel a subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video soon. Mart out.